So hello and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to another Project Cars 2 video. In today's video, as you can see, we're going to be looking at karting and just how to get your wheels set up right so it doesn't feel ridiculous. As you can see, I'm just doing a bit of street racing in the karts around Monaco, and we'll get onto a little bit of this later and the reasons behind the video. But for now, let's have a look at the reasons why you might want to get into karting. Now, looking at most Formula 1 drivers, they've all had a career starting out in karting, whether it's been guided by their fathers or another family member, but most of them have spent some time or another in karts and grown up around the racetrack. Now, having spent a little bit of time karting myself throughout the years, it's a fantastic sport to get into, and definitely one that will give you skills to go on to progress into better things and bigger cars. But all in all, the skills that you develop through driving a car are definitely transferable onto the race circuit and will lead you in good stead for future races. So if you're living in the UK, I'd certainly recommend looking up team sport karting or go-karting and just get down to the centre, have a little look around. These are amazing venues throughout the UK, and there's so many of them, quite competitively priced, and numerous events that they hold. And in no way am I sponsored by these at all, but I've had a few ventures down to these venues, and they really are top class, really good facilities, whether you're going there for a stag do or a friend's birthday, or just getting used to being on the track, getting your first eye in. It's definitely a venue worth looking at for go-karting, really professionally run. And there's so many of them, like I mentioned, throughout the UK. I've no idea how many there are. You could count them yourselves, but there's quite a few to look at, quite a few venues, varying different layouts depending on what night you end up going, and I'd certainly recommend it. But let's get on with the video. So let's get into having a look at the karts and just how much steering actually goes through the wheel. Now, we're on board here at the Dubai Autodrome, and you can see just how much input the driver has into the wheel. There's a very little amount of wheel rotation, and the wheels are a 1-to-1 ratio, nothing very complicated going through the wheel at all. So you're definitely going to want to go into the calibration menu, and I would suggest setting the wheel to about 300 degrees of rotation. Now, on my Fanatec wheel, I can actually set this in the parameters of the wheel so it stops at 300 degrees, but you might have to do this within the game itself. But how I've set the wheel ratio up is using a 300 degree rotation. Now, I'd like to just thank Christopher Bromley for bringing up the content of this video really, and suggesting to try and get karts feeling okay through the wheel. Now, he's another member of the Flashpoint Racing Facebook page, which you can also find on Discord, but he was asking, can you actually get the kart set up right? Now, as you can see here, I'm just going along the start-finish straight at the Autodrome, and I want you just to try pressing the brake as hard as you can and just turning a tiny bit. Now, I'm not turning a massive amount when I'm braking here, I'm just turning the wheel the tiniest amount to one side and then really heavily applying the brake pedal, and the car just automatically goes into a bit of a spin. Now, this is predominantly how we're going to get the car to turn so much. If you just try and turn into the corner, predominantly you're going to get a lot of understeer, and most of the corner turn is done using the brake pedal, which is a lot of the reason why Ayrton Senna once said that brakes aren't for stopping, they're for actually turning the car. And it's no much more apparent, especially when you're in a kart. Now, as you can see, just run a few laps here, just getting used to it. Each bend, applying a little bit of brake under just to slow the car down, and then a massive amount of brake pressure just to get the car to really rotate. No pressure really required through this section. You just want to be flat out on the accelerator, and then a tiny bit of brake again. Obviously, this isn't a special lap that I'm trying to set here. I'm just trying to show you the sort of techniques that you're going to need in order to set a good lap in a kart, and just how the karts handle. So just get used to running laps and just using the brake pedal to turn. I mean, the force feedback through my Fanatec wheel through every part of this game feels fantastic, but when I came into setting the car up for karts, it is very different. The force feedback feeling is kind of a little bit clunky after you've gone through about 90 degrees of the wheel. It's not as you would find it in all the other cars in the game, and it's certainly, I certainly couldn't run with about 180 degrees of rotation, which is what you would probably have in a car, maybe even less. But I've used 300 degrees of rotation, and I've adjusted the steering ratio within the game. That we'll get onto that shortly, but just for a little bit of time, get used to running the laps and get used to how it feels to turn the car really using the brake pedal. It takes probably about half an hour to 45 minutes at least to get used to how precise you sort of need to be with your braking points, and you're really trying to keep the momentum through the engine. You don't really want to be stopping through the rotation of the corner and like doing a handbrake turn and then carrying on, because that'll really just bog down the engine. You're just trying to sort of keep the rear wheels spinning and just get a lot of the corner braking to turn the car itself. So just quickly looking over the setup, and I'll give credit where it's due. I just looked at the fastest setup on the leaderboard and I literally stole that, but I've made a few little tweaks here and there just to set the car up as to how I feel. But running a higher tyre pressure at the front and a lower tyre pressure at the rear to get that rear end grip. Brake pressure, I'd definitely run this as high as you can. It feels quite good using 100%, and there's a slight adjustment on the rear downforce just to give it a little bit more straight line speed, but you can't take any more off than is currently there. I think you can just add one more click to the rear. The caster angles are a default setup, I think, at 15, and a tiny bit of front camber. I think I lowered the front spring rate a tiny bit, and no camber at the rear. We're just going to be sliding that around and we want to use acceleration. Now the steering ratio, I spent quite a bit of time messing around with this to try and get it to feel pretty good and to get the force feedback actually within a range where it works, and 5.4 was the best one really for me. The initial setup when it came, it was down at like 1.8 and it was just so twitchy for me. I just couldn't handle that at all. Didn't touch anything, nothing's been touched on the bump stops. The gear ratio is definitely worth altering for longer circuits, especially like Monaco that we'll look at shortly. But there's nothing else, there's no differential to look at. That's the setup. I'll leave you now to watch the lap in all its glory, but I've done it using the camera view so you can actually just see how much input I'm putting through my own wheel. So I'll leave you with the lap and then I'll rejoin you shortly. And for all those that enjoy a good replay, here you go. was quite happy with the 57 lap there, not quite a world record, but more than happy with that. I just thought I'd add a little bit of a section to see what the real life circuit looks like and what the real cars sound like compared to the game. A little comparison if you ask me. Let's move along. Now, as per my last few videos, I've been doing a little bit of AI racing, and I thought where best to do that than having a blast around the autodrome itself in Dubai with another 30 drivers. I thought that would be brilliant for the channel and it would be a brilliant event. So I went in to select the circuit, and there isn't the circuit's not there. There isn't actually any karting circuits that you can race on with the AI, which I found really extraordinary, to be honest. There isn't the Chesterfield, there isn't any of the autodromes, there is only the main circuits. So I was a little bit miffed at that. So I thought, where else could I go if I can't race on a karting circuit? Well, there's only one other venue, isn't there? And it had to be Monaco. So I thought, why not? Let's do Monaco with another 30 cars. So in true style, to test out the AI, I thought I'd do them again at 120% with 100% aggression and see how I would fare. But I tried one round of this and managed to get in pole position. So I thought I would just try and reposition myself on the grid closer towards the back of the grid and try and bring myself through the pack. So this is on 120% from almost the back of the grid at Monaco. So after trying to get a fairly mundane qualifying, I managed to get in at 28th, which was better than first place because I think it's going to be a far better video with a bit of a battle coming through the field. So here we are then at the start of the grid, and I managed to get an absolute flyer off the starting line, and it's all hell breaks loose as we get up the hill. Obviously everyone's jockeying for position as you come into this first corner. I'm just trying to get the car positioned where I can carry as much speed as I can up this hill in the setup. That's the only thing I've really adjusted is the gear ratios, just to try and get a higher top speed. Definitely more so down through the tunnel section. Just getting through this section without causing anyone any damage was quite a tough one really, and obviously this wasn't the first time I tried to do this video. There was a number of attempts, especially coming down to this corner. I managed to position myself quite nicely in this little gap here. Yeah, one of the biggest issues I seem to have was getting through the hotel hairpin section. Just always seems to run a little bit wide and could probably do with a little bit more on the steering ratio, but I didn't want to mess with the steering ratio too much because it was set up quite nicely for the actual karting circuits. But yeah, this was where I seemed to be able to manage to claw back some of my time through the tunnel, and even though I didn't really manage to set a perfect lap throughout this, I think I could probably get down to a 152, 151 once I've nailed it, but it was just for a bit of fun really. Coming down into the pool section, seem to always be able to carry a little bit more speed than the AI, but it's just a little bit of fun. You can see them having a little bit of a crash in the background there.
One left. You're all clear. One length behind. He's 2 lengths behind you.
Should just avoid the car going off into the barrier then, and then it's down the straight trying to pick up as much speed as possible and carry as much of that speed up the hill. You can see I'm gradually just gaining on the other car in front. Think about pulling alongside, but he sticks to the left hand side and just chinked right and managed to out drag him all the way up this hill.
You're clear. He's on your right.
And just coming into tobacco, it always seems to struggle to get round, but on the brake pedal, and it just sort of throws the car in. But all the other cars seem to go in there quite tightly, really. Again, you can see me just clipping the curb as we're coming into the tunnel section. Fingers crossed, I'll just try and get as much clawed back as possible through the section where I've increased the gear ratio a little bit to get more top speed, managing to hit about 82 miles per hour. And I don't think this would be a bad event, to be honest. If they hold a go-karting event after the Monaco race or before the Monaco race, I know they do the classic event prior to the race, and probably a couple of other support races, but I think go-karts would probably be quite an interesting race around here.
You're good, all clear. 2 lengths back.
Coming into the Anthony Noakes section, this is probably my favourite part of the course, really. Just flicking the car in there and it just carries the speed around in a tiny flick again as you come to join the start-finish straight. Not that I get that right on the last lap. Bit of a disappointment, really, as you'll see as the race progresses. The last few corners were a bit of a nightmare, but still enjoyable. I enjoyed doing this video, and I think it's quite a good challenge, really, coming from the back of the grid with 120%. It's quite a tough challenge, really, to get through the whole pack. So it was a case of last of the late breakers coming into tobacco on this attempt. Managed to make that stick as well, and probably the best attempt I got at going through the hairpin there. Managed to make the position stick throughout the entire section. Nice run out into the tunnel. Doesn't particularly work out the best every time through that section, as you'll see once again. I did have a few issues throughout this race, but still thoroughly enjoyable. So a lovely little run through this section, just positioning myself on the outside of the first corner, which gives me the better line into the next corner, and just managed to get that pass done. Really enjoyed that one. That was probably the best pass of the game for me, and again through Anthony Noakes, just enjoyable. Just pushing this other driver as well, having a little battle with him. I think I'm going to get him just on the start finish straight, or either on the way up the hill. In fact, I remember this one quite well, actually. It was quite a good battle all the way up the hill with this driver. Manages to stay on my right or left hand side, having just take a little clip of the curb there, and he manages to start pulling up alongside, and it goes all the way through the next few corners. I really enjoyed this one little battle.
Right side. Clear now.
As you can see, totally cocking the hairpin up, and then the guy gets the place back. And I still don't have the best run through this section either, taking too much of the barrier. I'll lose 3 places just through that one set of corners. So yeah, it's going to be a push to try and get those positions back.
length back.
So the AI just having a few little accidents here and there. You see them just scattered out on the right hand side as you come through the pool section, but just trying to catch up with this guy up ahead, and just hopefully going to pick him off through this section along the start finish straight. And then I see a car up ahead, just had a bit of a bang with the barrier and managed to get them both through that section. So always looking ahead certainly pays dividends. So the last time coming through Sandavot and up the hill, and finally finding myself in a little bit of free air. So just the last couple of corners to navigate, and the last time through the hairpin as well. So just enjoying doing this last lap now. Just coming down into the Mirabeau for the last time, and just tried a little bit of a different technique on the brake pedal, just easing into the brake pedal and then just pushing it a little bit harder, but it doesn't particularly work too well through the hairpin section. I still think you need to apply a little bit more brake, a little bit more harder force on the pedal as you come through those corners, just to get the front end to turn in. Just coming through the last few corners, and I was feeling pretty comfortable with having made so many, I think 22 places up to 6th place, and then just that tiny clip of the barrier just properly spun me around, and then it was a case of just trying to get going as fast as I could, but I didn't really want to swing across into the racing line, but managed to stop a few of the guys coming past, and that was how the race finished. I could have pressed stop and done the race again, but I think I'd had enough by that time. The race was done, and I think it was a good effort, to be fair. It should have been a 6th place finish, but finally finished down in 9th place, and I challenge anyone that's interested in doing starting around the 28-30 position and seeing if you can get to the start of the race in 5 laps. A bit of a challenge for you. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and until next time, please do hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, smash that like button as well. Thanks for watching as always. Ciao for now.